Most war stories begin with a capture, a raid, a tragic moment of defeat. They begin at the moment of losing freedom. But this story begins with a man walking toward the barbed wire, volunteering. The year is 1940. The place is Auschwitz. And this man, Witold Pilecki, didn't want to escape hell. He wanted to document it. And then he wanted to build a resistance army inside it. This is the story of the one man who asked to be captured and why his mission almost changed the world. Before the horrors, Pilecki was a decorated cavalry officer, a veteran of the Polish-Soviet War, a dedicated husband to Maria, and a man whose deep Catholic faith defined his sense of duty. He was, above all, a leader. When Poland fell in 1939, Witold immediately joined the secret resistance, the Tajna Armia Polska. The Nazis' intent was clear: to extinguish the Polish nation by eliminating its intellectuals and leaders. To achieve this, a new camp was established near the quiet town of Auschwitz. The whispers started small. Rumors of mass arrests, of disappearances, of brutal treatment. The Germans called it a labor camp, but the growing silence from those who vanished was deafening. By 1940, the resistance needed to know the truth. The resistance command needed verifiable, irrefutable proof. They needed the identity of the German officers, the methods of torture, and the true purpose of the compound. But who could go in? The mission was suicide. It required someone who was not only brave, but resourceful, disciplined, and utterly committed to the national cause. The question was asked, and the answer was Pilecki. His assignment was twofold. First, to report. Second, to establish an underground network, the kernel of an army to prepare for a mass rebellion or Allied liberation. On September 19, 1940, Pilecki, using the false identity of Tomasz Serafiński, executed his plan. He intentionally walked into a massive street roundup, a Łapanka in Warsaw. He presented himself for arrest, ensuring he looked like a random citizen swept up in the Nazi dragnet. The guards beat him, loaded him onto a truck, and began the brutal journey. He was beaten and starved before he even saw the fence. He was processed at the infamous gate with the chilling motto, Arbeit macht frei. His identity was stripped, replaced by a number, 4,859. He was no longer Witold Pilecki. He was a political prisoner. His mission, Report W, had begun. The camp was not a labor facility. It was a torture machine designed to systematically break the human spirit. The guards, led by sadistic officers, enforced a policy of starvation, exhaustion, and perpetual fear. Every pointless task, every beating, every death was calculated. But Pilecki was not just a prisoner. He was an observer. His task was to maintain his internal freedom, even as his body suffered. Pilecki knew that individual survival was impossible. Only an organized collective could resist the psychological warfare of the SS. He began his second goal, the creation of the ZOW, the Union of Military Organizations. He started small, searching for men of honor and discipline, former officers, priests, intellectuals. His recruitment was meticulous, based on extreme vetting. He adopted the most secure form of resistance cell, the Fives. Each cell of 5 men operated independently, with only the cell leader knowing the next man up. If one man broke under torture, the entire network would not collapse. The ZOW was a secret army forming in plain sight, dedicated to physical and spiritual survival. Their initial goal was to counteract the camp's strategy of breaking morale. They became an information network, sharing details of guard shifts, where the secret dumps were, and most importantly, sharing food and medicine to keep the most valuable members alive. This was an act of profound defiance. They even managed to build a rudimentary radio receiver, allowing them to hear news from the free world, which they secretly spread to boost morale, a tiny, precious link to life outside. The priority remained reporting. Pilecki's handwritten notes were tiny, often written on cigarette paper, detailing the daily death toll, the names of the officers, and the locations of the secret executions. They were concealed in clothing, in hollowed-out table legs, or tucked into bread loaves destined for the outside bakery. The extraction relied on prisoners working in external commandos who risked immediate execution to pass the notes to the Polish resistance outside. Report W began its journey, carried by those who called themselves the Men with the Bread, slowly making its way from Auschwitz to Warsaw, and then to London. In 1942, the mission changed from reporting on a brutal prison to witnessing genocide. Auschwitz was transformed. With the arrival of mass transports of Jews from across Europe, the camp expanded into Auschwitz to Birkenau. Pilecki was among the first to see the true horror. This was no longer about exhausting Poles. It was about the industrialized murder of millions. He detailed the horrific selection process on the ramp, the introduction of the chemical agent Zyklon B, and the construction of the crematoria. Pilecki's reports became frantic appeals for help. His ZOW organization was ready. They had secured small amounts of explosives and weapons, smuggled in through the persistent efforts of the outside resistance. They were prepared for the final desperate act, a mass uprising to coincide with an Allied airdrop or a frontline push. The goal was to seize the camp, destroy the documentation, and expose the atrocities to the world as a unified front. Pilecki sent his most comprehensive report, the famous 1943 T-shirt report, detailing the fate of hundreds of thousands. He was ready to lead the charge. Pilecki's intelligence, combined with that of other sources, reached the highest echelons of the Allied command in London. But the truth was too enormous, too monstrous to accept. The numbers he reported, the industrial scale of the killing, sounded like exaggerated propaganda. The Allied response to the Polish Home Army was devastatingly simple. Wait, there would be no airdrop. There would be no rescue attempt. The military focus had to remain on the main war fronts. This was the true tragedy. A man volunteered to go to hell, and the world refused to believe his testimony. Military strategists feared that bombing the camp or the railway lines would only be seen as confirming the very horrors they denied, or simply kill thousands of prisoners while remaining strategically ineffective. Pilecki realized his mission had failed on its most crucial objective, triggering external action. His intelligence was sound, but human comprehension was the ultimate barrier. Nearly 945 days inside the wire, Pilecki's luck was running out. The SS had intensified its counterintelligence, searching for the leaders of the resistance. Several key ZOW members were captured and interrogated. Pilecki knew his identity, even his false one, was compromised. If he was caught, the entire ZOW network would be exposed and annihilated. The planned rebellion was indefinitely postponed. He had one choice left: escape and ensure the full, unexpurgated truth was delivered personally. On the night of April 26, 1943, Pilecki, along with two others, Jan Redze and Edward Cicielski, made their move. Their escape depended on a prisoner working in the camp's bakery, which was located just outside the main perimeter. They waited until late, used tools smuggled by ZOW to cut the heavy wires, and then, using the noise of the large industrial ovens as cover, they scrambled into the dark. They were hunted relentlessly for days, surviving on scraps, using the bakery's own blueprints as a guide to the surrounding area. They eventually made contact with the Home Army Resistance Unit, and Pilecki delivered his full report, closing his chapter as prisoner 4,859. Free, but burdened by the truth, Pilecki did not rest. He submitted his full report to the resistance leadership. Though the tide of the war turned, the reports did not prompt the rescue he'd risked everything for. Pilecki himself rejoined the Home Army, AC, and continued fighting the occupation. In 1944, he participated in the most important engagement of the Polish resistance, the Warsaw Uprising. He fought under the pseudonym Anatole, leading his men in a desperate, ultimately doomed, battle for the capital. He was captured again, spending the final months of the war as a POW in Germany. Pilecki survived the Nazis, but he did not survive the peace. The Soviet Red Army simply replaced the Wehrmacht. Poland fell under the control of a Soviet-backed communist regime. Pilecki, loyal to the legitimate Polish government in exile, felt compelled to continue his fight for a free Poland. His final mission was to document the atrocities and political repression of the new communist regime, just as he had done against the Nazis. He was collecting intelligence for the Western powers. In 1947, he was captured by the Soviet-controlled Polish secret police, UB. The interrogators, ironically, were men whose country he had fought to free. Pilecki was subjected to horrific torture. He reportedly told his wife, "Auschwitz was mere child's play compared to this." Branded a Western spy and a traitor, Pilecki was condemned in a show trial designed to eliminate heroes of the wartime resistance. Witold Pilecki was executed on May 25, 1948, at Mokotów prison. His body was likely disposed of in an unmarked grave. By order of the new regime, the name of Captain Witold Pilecki was erased from history. He was destroyed by two totalitarian regimes, one that enslaved his people and one that betrayed them. The man who willingly faced hell was now forgotten by the world he saved the truth for. It took decades after the collapse of the Iron Curtain for the world to truly learn the truth about the man who volunteered for the most infamous death camp in history. His full report, often simply called Pilecki's Report, stands as one of the single most comprehensive first-hand accounts of the Holocaust. His mission may not have triggered the uprising he dreamed of, but his sacrifice ensured that the truth, however unbelievable, was documented by a man who saw it all. He gave us a simple message that must never be forgotten. To expose the truth, you must often face the darkness yourself. If this video resonated with you, let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.